The most terrifying monsters are never the ones hiding in the dark. They are the ones standing under bright lights, surrounded by people, looking completely ordinary. Imagine a crowded train station, thousands of footsteps, voices overlapping, metal screeching against metal as trains arrive and leave. Now imagine being completely alone inside that noise. In the autumn of 1918, a teenage boy stepped off a train in Hanover and disappeared into the crowd. He wasn't running, he wasn't afraid yet, he was just tired, hungry, and overwhelmed by the realization that the city he thought would save him didn't even notice he existed. People brushed past him without looking. Vendors shouted prices. Men leaned against walls, watching the flow of strangers with bored eyes. The boy tried to look confident, but confidence doesn't come naturally when you have nowhere to sleep and nothing to eat. That's when he felt it. That quiet sensation you get when someone is watching you for too long. Across the station, a man stood near the entrance. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't lurking. He spoke with vendors. He exchanged casual words with police officers. He looked like someone who belonged there, like a piece of the station itself. The man noticed the boy immediately, not because he looked strange, but because he looked vulnerable. When the man approached, his voice was calm, friendly, almost bored, as if he'd done this many times before. "You look lost." There was no threat in the words. No urgency, just quiet authority. The man introduced himself as Fritz Haarmann. He said he worked around the station, said he helped keep things in order, said he knew how rough the city could be for young boys alone. The boy hesitated, just for a second. But hunger has a way of silencing instincts, and when everyone around you seems to trust someone, your mind does too. So, when Fritz offered food, warmth, a place to rest, the boy followed. They walked through streets that felt narrower the farther they went. The noise of the station faded behind them. The city felt closer, heavier, like it was pressing inward. Fritz unlocked the door to his apartment. It closed behind them with a soft, final sound. No one inside the building noticed. No one asked questions. No one heard anything unusual. Whatever happened next was never witnessed by another human being. The boy was never seen again. Weeks later, his family searched Hanover in panic. Someone remembered seeing him with a man near the station. Someone mentioned an address. Police went there. They found Fritz Haarmann. They even caught him with another boy. But the search of the apartment was careless, rushed, uninterested. They didn't look behind the stove. They didn't look closely enough. If they had, they would have found proof that would have ended everything before it truly began. Instead, they left, and Fritz Haarmann remained free. He had been broken long before he ever killed anyone. Born into a home filled with tension, anger, and silence, Fritz learned early that control felt safer than connection. His mother protected him obsessively. His father terrified him. His childhood was a slow pressure that never released. Even as a boy, his behavior unsettled people. He preferred dominance over play, fear over laughter. His mind drifted in directions other children never explored. There was trauma, abuse, things that went unspoken and untreated. And instead of healing, they rotted quietly inside him. As a teenager, he targeted younger boys, lured them with gifts, with attention, with promises. Authorities noticed, but their solution was flawed. He was labeled dangerous, and then allowed to escape. By the time he returned to Hanover, the world itself was falling apart. Germany after the war was desperate, hungry, chaotic. Young men poured into cities with nowhere to go and no one to protect them. Police were exhausted, systems were broken, and Fritz Haarmann saw opportunity. He became an informant, helped the police, gave them names, gave them information, enough to seem useful, enough to seem trustworthy. Soon, officers stopped looking at him closely. That was all he needed. Every day, Fritz walked the station. He watched boys arrive with tired eyes and empty pockets. He listened. He waited. When he approached them, he never rushed. He spoke like someone who knew exactly how the city worked. He warned them about danger, told them how easy it was to get arrested, how risky it was to sleep outside. And then, he offered safety. Inside his apartment, the mask fell away. The attacks were sudden, silent, intimate. He didn't need weapons. He used his teeth. Victims were caught off guard, their bodies betraying them as panic set in. They couldn't scream. They couldn't fight. Their deaths were quick, horrifying, and deeply personal. This method became his signature. This was why people would later call him a vampire. Afterward, the bodies were cut apart. The remains were disposed of, often in the river, sometimes, possibly elsewhere. Fritz also sold meat on the black market, cheap meat, suspiciously cheap. People whispered, people joked nervously. No one proved anything. Years passed. Boys vanished. Some were reported missing. Many weren't. They were runaways, travelers, faces no one would look for too hard. Fritz Haarmann continued hunting in plain sight until 1924. Children playing near the river found a skull, then another, then sacks filled with bones, hundreds of bones, all young males. Panic swallowed the city. Newspapers exploded with fear. Families flooded police stations with names and photographs. Investigators finally stepped back and looked at patterns, and one name surfaced again and again: Fritz Haarmann. When police searched his apartment properly this time, they found blood soaked into the walls, clothing that belonged to the missing, evidence that could no longer be ignored. Fritz confessed calmly. He couldn't remember how many he killed. He said he lost count. 30, 40, maybe more. In 1925, Fritz Haarmann was executed. He showed no resistance, no fear, no regret. After his death, his brain was preserved, studied, kept, as if even in death, people were afraid to let him go. So the question remains, how many times have monsters stood right next to us, and we called them helpful? How many doors have closed quietly while the world outside kept moving? Because sometimes the most terrifying thing you can hear is someone saying, "Don't worry, I'm here to help."